Hello everyone and welcome back to Business Casual. Today I will be talking to CJ Wilson, longtime big league pitcher turned entrepreneur, about his love for cars, business, racing, baseball, and a whole lot more. Before we jump into that though, I'd like to remind you that I have a giveaway going on. If my channel is at 50,000 subscribers by June 5th, I will be giving away 2 pairs of signed cleats to random subscribers of mine. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, share it with your friends, let them know the competition's going on. You'll be entered to win. And without further ado, let's jump right in. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, dude.
Been a while since we've chatted.
Yeah, a lot of strikeouts between the last time we hung out, I guess, right?
That's very true. What you've been up to quite a bit though, right?
Yeah, always. There's always something to be done, especially when you're a dad. You know, then life changes a lot because instead of working on little aspects of yourself, you're sitting there thinking like, how do you optimize their development? And you're sitting like a coach, you know. So we're doing like potty training for a 2-year-old at home right now, which is, you know, it's as hard as trying to teach some kids a second or third secondary pitch, I guess, because people are just not wired for it yet.
What's the training technique on that? What's your go-to coaching method?
You know, 2 hands. You have to have little potties everywhere. That's the key. You have to have little potties all over the house. And if you're going on a trip, you have to have one in the back, like the SUV. And like our older daughter, when we would travel, we would literally hold up like a towel and let her like pee in the back of the truck or the back of the SUV with the potty. So we'd be like at the mall and she'd be like, I have to go. And we would like rush her to the SUV and then go right. So, you know, kind of interesting.
Yeah. Can't wait for that time period in my life. Not yet, but yeah.
Wait for it. Take your time. Yeah. You know, I'm glad. I don't know how guys do have the kids when they're like 22, 23 years old in the minors and stuff like that when they're first breaking in. Yeah. I'm very glad that I waited all the way through the career really before I had the kids, because with as much as I had to concentrate on baseball to be decent at it, I don't know if I could have juggled those things as well. At least I would have had no hobbies. I would have just like lost my mind, you know, trying to juggle all the stuff that I did and do. It's easy to substitute baseball for parenting. It's hard to substitute all the other stuff for parenting, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. It's a full-time job, right? You just replace one with the other.
Yeah, except you have a teammate, which is the good thing. You know, it's like having a good catcher that you work with that you just kind of go like, and they're like, yeah. You know, you don't really have to shake. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're on the right way with your wife.
Yeah, that's nice. Where are you at right now? Are you in California?
Yeah, I'm in Fresno at my office at the dealership. So I'm the general manager, operator of the Porsche Audi store, and then I don't think you can really see it behind me, but I'm like literally my office is like right here in the showroom.
That's sick.
So I basically, my day-to-day job is speccing out all the cars. You know, we want a white one with red interior, a black one with a brown interior, whatever, and then interacting with all the factories. So I have to wear all the hats. So I've got the Audi, you know, the BMW and Porsche all together, and that's kind of these are my teams now. You know.
Yeah. What's it been like out there with the coronavirus and shutdowns and stuff?
It's been here. We've had like 7 people die in the entire city or county or whatever. So it's been very normal. Like we've sold more cars in the last 8 days than we did the previous like 3 weeks. So things have been really picking up since about April 30th. A lot of backlash against the local government because there's so few sick people here that everybody is, everybody's got their masks. We have the fashionable mask here. It's like pinstriped, nice. That's what we're supposed to be doing. The funny thing is, I try to explain to people, if you're in your car by yourself, you don't need to be wearing a mask because it's your car, you know. Right. But you still see people driving around. We have a lot of people coming in, you know, shopping and stuff like that with masks on, with gloves on, which is fine. I think if they get to the point where there's a no mask, no entry policy, kind of like the opposite of the Arizona law, which is like no guns, you know. I think that'll be fine. But it's been fine here in Fresno. It's not like a it's not a skyscraper city, you know, so you don't have you don't have elevators, you don't have buttons to push, so you can kind of get by with social distancing as it is. It's very suburban, kind of rural, you know, vibe versus you know, New York City or San Fran or something like that.
Right. How long you been living in Fresno for?
Since I officially retired after the 16 season. I moved up here in like November, bought the store here. I moved up here because of the store. It's kind of like, you know, getting traded. I knew I wasn't going to go into coaching, and I was thinking about playing in 2017. But the eventuality of having no elbow cartilage and being able to put myself on the operating table again, I was like, I'll just like race cars, be a car dealer, run a business, and do that stuff, and maybe that'll get my competitive juices going as a transition. And you know, I would have liked to have kept playing for another couple of years, but the reality is that's as far as my elbow bends. So as you know, flexion is very important for getting good sliders and stuff like that, and accelerating. Without the range of motion, you just can't throw as hard. So I could probably still throw 88, 89 or something like that, maybe 90, because I stay in shape. But the reality is there's only so many innings that are left in my elbow before I need, you know, some sort of major reconstruction again. So I figured 5 arm surgeries was a nice round number. I'll cut it at that. And you know, too many sliders and crap when I was 11 or 12 years old, and not really developmentally formed right. If I would have maybe had some better coaching or something, I would have avoided that. But you know, at the end of the day, my body had to adapt to what I was able to do, and I didn't want to go out there and, you know, be one of those starting pitchers that throws 170 innings and like gives up 30 or 40 home runs a year. That just wasn't really my style, and I didn't want to go out there and collect the paycheck to do that. So that makes sense.
You miss it at all?
Dude, are you serious? Every day. Yeah, I always miss it. I miss it because wait, hang on a second. Are you from Jamba Juice?
Yes.
You can just leave it right there. Thanks. Postmates delivery.
What's your go-to? What's your smoothie?
You know, I ordered like an acai super boost thing or something like that. I try to mix it up. You know, nutrition's important. If you only have one thing, then you're not really getting everything. So I went with like a peach and greens bowl thing, and then an acai thing because acai tastes better than the green stuff. But I'm alternating. Like last night I had a T-bone steak at about 11 p.m. or 9 p.m., something like that. So today I'm going to do some greens and stuff to try to keep the system going.
Balance it all out. That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, like, I mean, I don't know if you remember when we first met, but like, you know, you were, I think it was probably like 2010 off season or something like that. So about 10 years ago.
Yeah, it was way back.
Yeah, so my goal, I went down to the ranch and I was thinking about working on a changeup. That was what my kind of goal was, and then figuring out a way to maybe add a mile per hour to my average velocity or something like that. Now, when I went down there, I was already 30 years old, so I had already learned a lot, right? But the thing for me is I had been very invested in like nutrition and stuff like that at a young age. Because I was like you, I was a normal sized guy. I wasn't one of these freak guys that's like 6'8", throws 100 miles an hour when they're 14 years old, right? So like Chapman or somebody like that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to optimize what I had. And I realized that if I could just get 1 or 2% better across a couple different things, then that was going to help. And nutrition for me has always been big because I had inflammatory issues. I had, elbow issues and stuff like that. So I was always looking for something to kind of allow me to get through the season without having to, take a bunch of pain meds and everything like that. So now I'm totally ready for real life, which is I sit at a desk, I work out, I complete my rings on my Apple Watch every day, and chase the kids around. But you asked about missing baseball. Yes, I miss baseball. I still watch baseball. I still pick up a baseball every once in a while, and I'm like, you know what I mean? But it's difficult, it's difficult to have something that's such a big part of your life for 30 years roughly, and then you just don't have it anymore. And I did some announcing last year for the AAA team here, for the TV games, and I was like, man, the guys that we have, you know how it is, right? You listen to these dudes doing the color commentary and stuff on TV, and you're like, man, this guy's a dick. Like, he's saying some really negative stuff about the home team. Like, why is he doing that? And I realized I have 2 rules, right? Be nice to the home team, right? and then be complimentary and talk about how hard baseball actually is. Is for you, right? You know this, as good as your stuff is, you'll still throw 94, 95, 97 miles an hour or whatever it is, right? And some dude is still going to hit a homer off you at some point.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're in the big leagues too, right? So, you know, when you hear the announcers go, oh man, he chased another slider in the dirt, you know, he really needs to get his head in the game. You're like, yeah, well, it's like super hard to hit a slider when a guy throws one that goes like this after a fastball that goes like that. You know, now that everyone's doing the pitch tunneling because of like Rob Friedman, Pitching Ninja, like this is a thing now. And you knew about this forever ago. I knew about it a while ago. I wasn't able to generate the type of vortex spin or whatever with my arm because I didn't have the range of motion. So my spin rate was never as good, or spin direction or whatever they want to call it. But for me, it was all about hiding the spin of the ball. So throwing like the widest ball possible. That's what I felt made my cutter and my slider and my fastball harder to hit versus like what my movement or my pitch score was or something like that, you know, because we didn't have what's the little radar thing now?
TrackMan, Rapsodo.
Yeah, we didn't have Rapsodo at the time. And the Angels were so ass backwards that they wouldn't even give me my TrackMan data when I asked for it back in like 2012 or whatever.
Well, I'm sure you'll be shocked to hear that it's still that way in many organizations. Players don't get access to much of the data.
Well, because they think there's guys like you and me, guys like Zach Greinke that understand all this stuff and how it works and understand that there's certain swing planes that you want to use to your advantage or whatever. And that data actually helps a good smart player take it to the next level, or maybe get one more out here and there. That's all you can do, right? It's not going to help you throw 10 miles an hour harder, but it'll make you realize maybe if you throw this dude a two-seamer, he's going to clobber it. So stick with four-seamers and force him to get on top of the ball better, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. So.
Yep. No, it's a different game. It's crazy how much it's evolved in 10 years, going from basically none of that and no one having a clue. I mean, certain players obviously learned it experientially, but now 10 years later, it's like everyone's talking about it. Like you mentioned, Rob and Pitching Ninja, and it's all about, you know, the spin rates and spin axis and the pitch design and the swing planes, and it's crazy how much data has kind of infiltrated the game and changed it in some ways better, some ways worse.
I think the hard thing for me to get behind is the pundits that are still saying starting pitching is overrated. To me, that's still the stupidest thing, that there's this movement for guys like Brian Kenny and these dudes to get on there and say, oh, the win is worthless, and then, you know, we need openers, and this is I hate that part of the game. I like seeing a horse pitcher go out there, throw 110 pitches and dominate when he's on. I don't like the idea of taking a guy out after 5 innings because maybe the third time through the order they're going to recognize something. Well, as a pitcher, if you're forced to develop that fourth pitch, that fifth pitch, you know, then that gets you through the lineup a third or a fourth time, and that's what makes guys like Scherzer or Kershaw or even Verlander really at this point, and Greinke, still good at a point that they've thrown thousands of innings for everybody to analyze. Everybody's seen all of Zach Greinke's velocities, but he still goes out there, even though he's not throwing 95 anymore, he's still going out there and having the ball go all the different crisscross ways, and still hard to square up, you know?
Yeah, and watching the World Series this past year was a good indication of that, right? You had like Scherzer, Strasburg, and Corbin that threw the majority of the innings for Washington, and they coming out of the pen. I mean, growing up, I was a Braves fan, so watching Maddox, Smoltz, and Glavine, and like those guys coming out of the pen and like picking, you know, you start and 2 days later, you're coming out of the pen, and like Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling in the World Series, like relieving for each other. Like that stuff is what made me like fall in love with starting pitching, you know. And then watching, obviously, on the Astros side, you have Greinke, you got Cole, you got Verlander that are going out there and just chewing up large chunks of innings. It's fun. Like that's I think what gives baseball the kind of the drama and the kind of that building sense of something special is going on. You know, when it's a new pitcher every inning, it's hard to get into that flow and that rhythm with the game.
Well, it dehumanizes the aspect of what we love about sports, which is combat, right? Effectively, you derive a game like baseball away from a team sport into a fight. It's a pitcher versus a hitter. It's a pitcher versus a pitcher. It's the manager versus the manager. And when you pit those guys against each other in that archetypal format, And I think you have just that much more interest, because then you know that like Verlander has this reputation or this pitch, or Cole has this pitch, or, you know, Scherzer has this attitude or whatever. And then you look for that and you get a chance to see it over and over and know it. But when a guy comes in for 15 pitches, unless he's got the Fernando Rodney thing here with the deal, like it's very hard to get a feel for the relief pitchers, you know, and who they are and what they can do, other than maybe one guy's got like a trick pitch or something. And, you know, it's always been like that. The best athletes are so much more valuable than the average athlete, because there's only so many roster spots. And if there was an unlimited roster size, then yes, you could just have everybody's a reliever. You're pinch hitting all the time. And then it's just like a big brawl. It's like a bar fight. You know, someone's just coming in with a pool cue, all kinds of weird stuff happening. But, you know, seeing the best, effectively, what baseball is great about is that you have effectively the best, let's say 8 or 10 players on one team against the best 8 or 10 players in the other team. And there's obviously more flexibility with certain managers. They're going to have maybe more creativity around the edges of the roster now, because they realize that, hey, there's this one lefty that just like hits lefties really well, or there's this guy you need to come in to steal a base. And there's always been that aspect of it, like the ninja sniper kind of like one skill guy.
Yep.
But the thing that makes me pissed off the most and miss the most is that I was a good hitter and I loved hitting, and I played outfield in college, and I always wanted to play in the National League. And now you got two-way players like Lorenzen and, you know, Ohtani, and I'm like, damn it, that was stop. And to the point that Sosha was so miserable to play for sometimes, because he would force us in batting practice to wear thumb guards and a full helmet and like a shin guard and like an elbow. I'm like, dude, it's BP. The guy's throwing 58. If I can't get out of the way, then like, how am I going to catch a ground ball? You know what I mean? Give me a break.
Yeah.
We're like up there bunting off the machine, and he's got like our full thing on. And I'm like, dude, this is disrespectful. I'm a real athlete. So my favorite story in that regard was I got a hit off a guy. We played the Cubs in like 2013 or something like that, 14, I forget. I gangster hacked a guy, first pitch, hit like a 96-mile-an-hour fastball in the right field, get on first. Ibar comes up behind me, like flares a little bloop into left field, and I run first to third right in the face of the left fielder and do like a pop-up slide. And I look at Sosha and I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, hey, I work out, dude. Like, I work out. I'm fast. Like, deal with it, you know? And then he's like, are you kidding me? That's bullshit. You're going to get hurt. I'm like, listen, Weaver's going to get hurt because he's a big loppy dude, like, and he's all gangly and stuff. Like, guys like me, guys like Greinke, we live for that aspect because we're better athletes than the other guy we're facing some of the time. Right. Then you got guys like Lorenzen that are like freaking looks like
crazy.
Thor, hitting 440-foot homers and shit, you know? So, but I love that part of the game, and that's, you get back into that individuality and the importance of having key players. And there's definitely guys like that over the last couple of years have sort of made I don't want to say like a niche, but they've come in and like actually pitched, you know, like Swanson, you know, Swanson actually goes up there and throws
throwing like 91. Yeah,
exactly. That's legit. And as a pitcher, you appreciate that because you know how freaking hard that is, you know? So vice versa, you know, when you see a guy like Bumgarner tee off on someone and hit a bomb, you're like, that's not accidental. The dude's a good hitter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
no doubt. For me, it just comes back to the competition. You know, like my favorite thing about baseball is that one-on-one competition that you mentioned. It's me against the hitter. It's, you know, me against the lineup. It's our team versus your team, but who's going to be the better shortstop? Who's going to be the better third baseman? Like, I love that part of it. When it just becomes hey, our team's going to go match up against your team and see who's better, and you don't have that visceral, like, one-on-one mindset, it just it's not the same for me. You know, I don't like it nearly as much.
Then it's just soccer and we're all just running around.
Yeah.
I
wanted to ask you about the transition that you had from baseball to racing, because racing, you have that one-on-one, like you're in the car next to someone, like trying to beat them around the track, right? So how's that transition been for you competitively? And was it a seamless transition? Did you just jump right into it? And how'd that go?
No, because I think when you're a performer, like you know, as a baseball player at the level that I was at, even though I wasn't a Strasburg or a Chapman or a guy at that level, I was a good player. And going into racing, it's starting all over again. There's a lot of aspects to it where you are, you know, you have to have this open mind, and you have to be in like I don't know, not even minor leagues. You have to be like high school all over again, right? To the point where it's like, okay, this is how you do a bunt to third base, and this is how you bunt to first base. And thinking about that and having that beginner's mind, I think it seems a little bit more seamless than it was for a lot of people because they didn't realize that I've been racing since 2008. And so I had been racing while I was playing still. So I would race in the off season, and I won a bunch of races.
Was that in your contract?
Yeah, I was not allowed to do that. I mean, I wasn't allowed to do that or ride motorcycles. I would still go out and ride like motocross in the off season because I felt personally that doing extra danger stuff, you know, for, I mean, realistic purposes, it allowed me to not give a shit if there was a guy at third base, you know, because then when I'm out there with my life on the line, that if I mess up, that I could hit this wall at 120 miles an hour, then yeah, there's a guy on third base. Okay, fine. There's a guy on third base. Like, I have to get the hitter. I'm not going to pick this guy off. I'm not James Shields. I'm not going to pick the guy off at third base. So what I have to do is really concentrate on what I can control. And what I can control is tunneling in, making the best pitch sequence, getting the guy to think I'm going to throw it over here, but then throw it over here. And, you know, and then that allowed me to get back to the chess match where I think the reason why I liked baseball was because I knew that I wasn't physically a 100-mile-an-hour guy or something like that. So I was able to then think externally a little bit more, to think of myself in the third person and say, okay, I'm playing this video game and I'm going to hit these buttons. And like, how does this pitcher defeat this hitter with the stuff that this pitcher has today? And think about it in a depersonalized way. And depersonalizing the situation allows you to not let your emotions and your heart rate get so high that you make caveman decisions. So you're able to stay thematically like strategic and aggressive in a way where you're trying to win, but it's not in a way that you're like, screw it, I'm gonna throw as hard as I can. Because I just, you know, that wasn't my solution. And, you know, it took me giving up a couple home runs to realize that was a better way of doing it. But racing itself is more of an inner mastery on the level that I'm at, which is to say that when you're developing, you have to challenge yourself on a statistical level or a fundamental level. You can't necessarily, you're not challenging the other guys and they're not challenging you as much as you're trying to get the most out of yourself. Because if you get the most out of yourself, then that's the best you can do. And in a weird way, racing is not necessarily always about winning, because if you're doing like a championship season, sometimes you can win the championship season by only winning 3 or 4 races in a 16 race season. It's just about being consistent and not crashing and not ending up in the ditch upside down on fire, Ricky Bobby style. So when I started racing, I had various goals, and then the goals were to basically, I mean, think about it like as a starting pitcher, right? Your goal when you're getting established in the majors or anywhere, really any level, is, okay, I want to go out there and throw like 6 good innings or 7 good innings, or I want to have 5 strikeouts or 1 strikeout per inning or whatever. And then then it's about limiting the damage. And it's like, well, I gave up 3 runs last game, I want to give up 2 runs or less this game. And then having those incremental improvements. That's exactly what racing is. You go around a track and it's shaped like this or whatever, and then you have to figure out how to be 1/10 faster in every corner. And then if there's 10 or 15 corners, that means you're 1.5 seconds faster, which is a significant amount of time. And feet per second being what they are, if you're going 90 miles an hour, that's like 132 feet per second, right? So if your average lap is 90 or 100 miles an hour, that means that you're like between 100 and 200 feet, you know, from the ideal lap. Right. In those intervals, and you can see it. It's like Mario Kart. There's like a ghost car, except it just happens to be your competition. And the reward that you get on an internal level from challenging your fear, challenging your uselessness, and challenging your hopelessness, and then adding skills as a survival method, like learning how to like turn in like there's no way I'm gonna ever make it. Like I made it, you know, and that jumping over those little crocodiles, you know, like it feels good. And that's something that I guess you only get if you're performing in front of people or you're doing something like that. It's in a way, when you're lapping by yourself, it's like throwing a bullpen. You're trying to be perfect. But then when you're in the race, there's so much chaos that you're trying to think ahead and strategically be ahead of stuff. So you see, for instance, if a team suddenly starts to swing at the first pitch every at bat, then you know that you don't really have to throw strikes anymore because they're just hacking. And same thing with racing. If you know that there's guys that are being way too aggressive, you just can kind of hang out behind them, and if you just watch them crash, and they'll just get out of your way. So there's a lot of stuff like that happens, but the chaos and the stuff that happens, like I was in races where I passed 15 or 20 people because like 8 of them crashed and 7 of them were fighting and they didn't even notice me. And I just kind of like just whistled right through. And, I guess that racing is just another sport. So you have a mentality as an athlete to say, I need to improve this. And there's no lying. The statistics are what they are. Like you either did this or you didn't. You either pussed out and brake too early or you just charged it. And so there's a lot of aspects of that. But just like Rapsodo or TrackMan, you alter the geometry of the car within limits. You start to figure the different stuff out, and the engineering aspect of it for someone like you would be great. You're a car guy. You'd like it because it's hard. And but keeping all that in there, and then also monitoring the car to say, oh well, it's sliding a little bit more. I need to do this to maybe back the tire pressures off, and then thinking about what you can alter in the same way that if your slider's not braking, you have to do something different. You can either start wrapping your wrist more, turn it into more of a curveball. You can take a little off to try to give it more time. You can, start like using your fingernail to scratch the seam a little bit to get a little more bite. There's a lot of different stuff. And it's so changeable. Every lap is different. And, but I've had a chance to do some unbelievable stuff behind the wheel and had some great opportunities with Porsche specifically. I got to race Pikes Peak. I got to drive the Lamaze prototype car.
No way.
Yeah, that was the best thing ever. So they give you the keys to a $17 million car, and they're like, "It's a very nice car. Do not drop it off the track, please." Okay. And you're sitting here going like, "Is this even real? Like, should I even am I even qualified for this?" But you train for it, And they gave me some time in the simulator. I did a lot of shifter carts, stuff like that. But I went around some corners at like 4.5, 5 Gs and 6th gear, 165 miles an hour. And you're like, and you make it. They call over the radio and they were like, "How's everything going, Wilson?" I'm like, "This is literally the best day of my life." So, it's pretty cool.
What was the bigger adrenaline rush? First big league start or first race?
First race is way scarier, because baseball, you sort of you trust your routine and you go into it. But I remember my first start was against the Nationals on Father's Day. And it was kind of weird because my first year I was in the big leagues, I was coming off of Tommy John surgery and that I had in the minors, and I had some nerve damage. I couldn't feel like my pinky and my ring finger. So I'm out there throwing. I could still throw 94, 95. I felt like I was really good. I was 24 years old, and but my pitch count was only like 50 or 60, so I was a reliever. They throw me out there. They're like, "Hey, throw as many pitches as you can. Go for it." And I'm like, "All right." I ended up giving up 8 or 9 singles and losing the game. I threw like 3 2/3 or 4 innings or something like that, and it wasn't very fun. My rookie year with racing was a lot better. My first race I ever did, the tire blew out. The second race I did, I got in a small collision, ran over a piece of debris, tire exploded. And I was like, "This sucks. I don't know why I'm doing this." And then my third race I won, and my fourth race I won. And I was like, "Oh, I'm a natural. This is great. I'm a natural." And then, then I started racing more and more. And then I had some pretty fun, they call them DNFs, like, you didn't finish. So I ended up stuck in a tire wall in one place. I raced formula cars for a little bit, and I remember I got taken out of turn 1. Some kid blasted my car and, blew up the suspension. So I hit a wall in 2009 at like 110 miles an hour at Sonoma in a formula car. That was like 11 Gs into the tire barrier. That's weird. There's some stuff like that, but as a team owner, I started a race team, and then my team won a couple championships. And so then that was like parenting, because I wasn't racing at the time during the pro season. I was just racing the amateur season on the side, and watching your team win, it was like, this is the best thing ever. This is amazing. But we won a championship we won 2 championships with Mazda, and we finished second to the Ford factory team in 2016 in the Porsches. And the reward from that was really nice too. So I had all these things happening at the same time, and I didn't really even stop to appreciate it. I was just participating in a way that was just all passion. I was just giving everything I could. And I think that's just kind of how I am. So it's different because when a race starts, you just keep going, right? And there's no real let up. Whereas pitching, like, okay, you got to face Cabrera, get him out, and then you got to face, Martinez, and then you get him out, and then you can think about it in between, then you can go sit down and, drink a soda in between innings or whatever. But the racing is it's a lot harder to do all that stuff, but it is teamwork, it is engineering, it is planning ahead, it is balance, it is controlling your aggression level. It's a lot of the same stuff you get as a pitcher. It's not the same as playing shortstop. I don't think a guy like maybe Javi Baez would transition into racing very well, but I think a guy like yourself or I'm trying to think of a guy. I don't think Scherzer's attitude would really translate. You know what I mean? I think you need to be a little more cold-hearted and diabolical and have this kind of demeanor where no one knows what you're thinking, because it's not important what you're feeling. It's just important that you don't make mistakes. Yeah. If that makes sense.
When did you know that you were interested in business? Because you're running a racing team. You got the dealership going on. Clearly you're very business minded and kind of see that direction. When did you?
I don't know. I think when I was a kid, my first real thought process was I was going to play baseball so I could get cool stuff. That's how I thought about it. And then I got to a point where when I got older, my grandfather was a math guy. He was a calculus professor and got me into mathematics and stuff like that, and got me into stuff. And I realized, hey, there's all these businesses out there. They're just making money. There's the stock market. It's just happening every day. And so when I was 12 or 13 years old, he taught me how to range trade from the Dow Jones. So I used to range trade as a teenager before I would go to school every day. And I would take my lawnmower money, my $30 a week or whatever from mowing a couple neighbors' lawns, and take my birthday money or something. And I grew a nest egg of about $2,000 into about $4,000 over the course of a couple of years, range trading Charles Schwab stocks, so SCHW on the NASDAQ. And, that taught me that there was money to be made and people were making it. And that at some point, maybe that would be an angle for me. And then through the magic of injuries, I had a lot of free time in baseball. So, 2008, I got injured. I had surgery in August, and then I didn't pitch until the next season. So that year, I started hoarding gold and buying gold bullion and silver bullion because I was living in Texas, and this is when everybody was literally scared. They're like, "Oh my gosh, Obama's going to be the president!" And then ammo prices and gold and everything went up, and the economy was crashing. So as a baseball player, you have a fixed income, so it's a little bit easier to negate the effects, I guess, of a negative economy. So that's when I started that, and then that's when I started flipping cars on the side and buying cars and selling them. And that's when I realized, okay, I'll just go into the car business, because that's I like cars, and I kind of understand why other people like what they like, and that was the deal. But I had got my first signing bonus out of college. I was drafted in the 5th round, so I had a couple bucks, and I put $40,000 down with a buddy towards a condo in Huntington Beach, and put renters in it, and then immediately saw a return on that investment. So that was when I was 21, 22 years old. So I've always been, I've always had something going on in business. And then when I was in the minor leagues, I worked in the off season. I worked at Nordstrom's. I worked at Mother's Market, which is a health food place in Orange County, Southern Orange County. And trying to think, I always just had jobs, because I had to. I was a very blue collar family. So I knew I didn't want to be broke, and I knew minor league money isn't really anything. So that coupled with the fact that I missed a year and a half in 03, 04 from Tommy John surgery, then it was okay, there's a real world out there, and I don't want to be in it. I want to play baseball, but I need to be aware that if I don't play baseball well enough, I'm going to have to go get a regular job. And that is that's the summary, I think, of why I went into business as quickly as I did full time after baseball, because I felt like the competitive juice, the mathematical awareness, understanding that it's going to be hard, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to get kicked in the nuts, by the world a couple times, like I have been, and come back from it and get stronger. I think that's been the sort of, the getting the dough together, the cake to rise a little bit.
Yeah. You feel like baseball prepared you for that? Just in the sense of in business you get beat up all the time. It's sometimes it's out of your control too, which is very similar to baseballs. And then you have the team aspect of it. Obviously with a racing team, you have an actual team, but in business you have employees, you have, people that are next to you, coworkers, whatever the case is. You feel like baseball prepared you for that?
Here's the thing that people don't understand about baseball: the redundancy of playing every day. That's a real job. Being at the stadium every day, 8 or 10 hours a day, that's a real job. And when you take what we've done with our lives and you've turned yourself in from someone that at some point someone doubted that you could do it, right? The same thing for me. And with business, it'll be the same. Someone's going to doubt that you have the ability to learn fast enough to swim. Being an entrepreneur is like jumping out of a plane and building a parachute on the way down. Like that's what it's like. And did you bring enough material with you to make that happen? Did you really plan it out on a horizon that makes sense? I think a lot of people, if they're handed the parachute, can figure it out. But to actually make a parachute, that's really what it's like to create your own culture, hire people, learn how to fire people, and learn how to adapt businesses to changing conditions, which is like we're seeing now with the COVID shutdowns and stuff. But baseball absolutely prepared me. The mindset, the willingness to work, the willingness to confront challenges, and the willingness to self-analyze and say, this is not working. I'm not doing this well enough. And then go to somebody else and say, hey, you're not doing this well enough. Why not? What can you do better? And then maybe coach them in the same way that you would with a rookie teammate and say, hey, listen, that's a sloppy ass suit. We need to go call these people and get you a new one. Or, hey, your emails suck when you're writing to customers. Like I read them and your punctuation sucks. We need to boop, 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 and get people more professional. So having the expectations of being on TV, knowing that if you give up a home run, you walk back to the dugout and you start bashing the water cooler, that's going to make SportsCenter. It's the same thing as having a business and knowing that, you're going to have a month where you lose money and not letting it affect you not only the next month, but with the culture that you create in your employees. And that's really hard because sometimes you do want to hit people with a chair, but try to keep it to yourself. Do it behind the dugout where no one can see it.
That's right. You've always been a goal-oriented person and process-oriented person. What are your goals in business? Where do you want to take this thing that you got going on?
That's a great question. So car business, a lot of it is about numbers, or a lot of it is about, hey, you sell this many cars and you sell that many cars. So there's a goal there to expand, and expand the performance of the store by getting your reach bigger. But the difference between cars and pizza is that you don't truly need to go get a car today. By the way, you could be a pizza addict and have pizza every day. It's cheaper to order food than it is to order a car. It also takes less time. So the whimsical nature of a restaurant is a little bit, in a way, easier to shape on a shorter period of time. But a car dealership is such a bigger vibe that you have to really be so far ahead of it, because the cycle, there's very few people that are going to get a car more than once every 3 or 4 years. And so for when I was running the McLaren Scottsdale store, that was very easy to change because those guys that are in that earning bracket, they want to get a new car every 10 or 11 months. So you're able to kind of grow the business, and we doubled the business there in a year and a half. But to do the same thing here in Fresno with these 3 brands, a little bit harder, because someone that's getting an Audi Q7, that's their daily vehicle. And unless there's some significant gnarly change in their life, they don't really need to replace it. So then, you have to shift your focus from ramping up this super fast scale of we sold 300 cars, now we need to sell 400 cars, then 600 cars. It's not like that. It's more, can you incrementally make $5 to $10 more from every transaction? And then how many transactions are you making? And so having that compound effect, that's how you get the earnings of the business. And then from there, impressing the manufacturers enough that they want you to have more dealerships. And then they might even allow you to build your own that doesn't exist yet. So they'll say that there's a city that needs one, and they'll be like, hey dude, this city needs an Audi store, go build one and it's yours and you can have it. Because they have all these franchise restrictions where you can't just move one down the street from another one. It doesn't make sense. So you have to have 10 miles apart, but at that point you also have to have the support of the manufacturer and the reason, meaning there's enough business in that area. So in LA, there's tons of dealerships. In Fresno, there's 1 or 2 of everything. And that's why it works here, because I'm in the kiddie pool still effectively. So I'm able to learn and experiment and then kind of get my formula right. But I've only been doing this full time here for about 3 years, maybe a little bit over 3 years. So I would say my goal is to get to the point that I can double the value of the business via, incrementally increasing all these metrics across the board, not necessarily doubling the sales of the business, if that makes sense.
Yeah. How about with the race team? Where do you want to go with that?
Well, my corporation is called CJs Road to Lamaze. So the idea is for me to get to the point where I'm racing at Lamaze. I think I actually sold the race team last year because the guy that was running the race team had a really good relationship with Honda, and I'm a German car guy. So despite the fact that the relationship was positive, I didn't get anything back from Honda to the point that they were going to say, hey, we want you to be a Honda dealer, if that makes sense. So it didn't make sense for me to race the Acura with my team and then be a Porsche, Audi, BMW dealer. I was like, hey, we need to work out. And Porsche was like, please race with us. And Audi was the same way. But my race team owner, or race team, I guess, chief, you want to call him, like the general manager of the race team, he had just had such a good relationship with Honda that it was easier for me to just like sell the team and then focus on myself, and then that was just less overhead and less drama. So right now, my focus is just on developing, and the benefit of that is right now everyone's doing esports. So just like everyone's playing Fortnite, everybody's racing on Forza or iRacing or whatever. So that's kind of how I'm developing right now as well.
Interesting.
And yeah, so because the link between virtual racing and racing is so close, it's so much more mental, because you don't have to contort your body to get you don't have to get like that.
Yeah.
Like that whip, you know what I mean, to be good at it. You just have to be here, and then you have to feel the difference between that, and then anticipate it or whatever. So racing is probably the most virtual sport in that regard, because you can kind of mentally put yourself in a position where it's exactly the same. You can sit there in your living room with a helmet on, you know what I mean, with a motion simulator that moves you around, and it's almost, I mean, it's like 95% of the deal, So that's enabled me to stay fresh, even though I'm not in the car as much as I wanted to be. And then when I get in the car, because I'm still, relatively speaking, I have a lot to learn. So then my development is still on an upward path. It might not be as vertical as I want, but it's still making progress. So, and then in racing, you can race till you're like 60, 65 years old. So I got plenty of time,
Yeah, a whole second career.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Second career at this point, 2-sport athlete, right? I'm the next.
That's right.
I'm the unathletic Bo Jackson. That's what I'm going to tell.
All right, I got a couple questions for you before I let you go. Favorite personal car and favorite race car that you've driven?
Favorite personal car? I don't know. That's a hard one. You know what? There's so many good cars out there, right? That for me, I think the McLaren P1 has been the best car experience for me overall. The doors that it opened, the experiences that I've had going 200 miles an hour in a legal way on uncharted desert roads out there in South Arizona or North Mexico, whenever. That has been great. That's been fun. Tons of track days. Driving all across the world, shipping it, going to like different national parks, driving through Yosemite, Yellowstone.
You still have it?
I just sold it.
Oh, man. It's such a beautiful car.
Yeah, it is. It's still kind of for sale. So if you know anybody, let me know. But
your P1 is what got me into McLarens. I saw a picture of it when you first got it.
Yeah,
and it was like the paint color and like the way the 7 different colors and the way the light shines off it, and I don't know, I'm in love with the P1, like the alien looking tail lights.
Yes, that's the thing, is it looks like a UFO, and that's why I like it, because so many of these other cars, they look just like the earlier version of themselves, but the P1 came out and it didn't really look like anything, and now they've kind of manufactured some cars to look more like the P1. But I've had a lot of McLarens, I've had a lot of Porsches. The Carrera GT for me is probably the other best car that I've owned. And I really like my Raptor. I like having a Raptor. That's like the supercar of trucks. But the race car, I had a chance to race, like I said, the Porsche Lamaze car. I didn't own it, and it was only for about 30 laps, so I don't know if that can even count. But the Porsche Lamaze car is like, that's the best car ever. It's the best developed vehicle that's ever been raced. And so, I mean, it won Le Mans 3 years in a row, and then they let me drive it. And I was like, this is crazy. But second from that would probably be either the Cayman GT4 race car or the LMP3, the Ligier LMP3 that I raced in Europe in 2017. That was a cool car. I mean, when you're driving a prototype, those are the ones that look like spaceships, kind of like the P1, but even more like crazy aggressive. There's no room. I mean, it's like this big on the inside, and you got a big old helmet on. And when you're going around corners, you're doing 3 or 4 Gs, and you're literally resting your head against like the crash bar, and you're bracing your elbows against like the carbon fiber cockpit. That's a cool experience. If one day you'll drive something like that, and you'll be like, now I get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Slick tires, downforce, braking like you can't even imagine. That's all really cool. So that's a very long answer, but there you go.
Gotcha. Favorite race memory? I think we've kind of covered it, but versus favorite baseball memory?
Favorite racing memory was I finished 4th actually at a race in Spa. Spa is like the track that's on Forza. It's amazing. And we had a couple days to practice there. I raced there in the rain, raced there in the dry, all in the same race. They had a race that went from dry to pissing rain to like kind of wet to dry again. And we ended up finishing 4th in the car, in the LMP3 car. Baseball wise, I don't know. I mean, probably my first hit against I hit a triple against the Astros. That was pretty cool. I don't think I'll ever forget the sensation of that. I threw a couple complete games, and I remember, and got my first save, maybe something like that. But it's just hard to reflect on baseball sometimes, because I don't know. I got a chance to do some pretty cool things, but I was always a silver medalist. We lost the World Series, gave up a home run to Prince Fielder to lose the All-Star game. It bounced off the top of the wall. This is the way my career went. He hit a ball, it bounced off the top of the wall and then scooped over. And I was just like, it was one of those things. Just one of those things. Probably should have thrown him like a front door curveball and see if he could kill somebody in the dugout instead, or maybe just a high changeup and just completely fuzzed his mind. But, I think baseball for me, it was a huge gift to be able to play for as long as I did and play with as many teammates as I had. I get to play with like Kenny Lofton, Sammy Sosa, Sandy Alomar Jr., all these guys that I saw play in the 90s when I was a kid. I got to start. I had started a game against Roy Halladay, who was kind of the guy I looked up to. I remember grounding out to first base. I grounded out to Ryan Howard against Roy Halladay, and I was like, I hit the ball terribly, like that was his cutter's really good. Like that was unbelievable. And it just like those, you think about those little things, and you're still in the middle of your career, and unless you sit down and write a list down, you won't realize until maybe you're done playing. But there will be 100 memories as a baseball player that you'll look back on and think, wow, I was lucky. I got to meet George Bush a couple times. I got to go on Air Force One. I got to fly. I got to go visit all these things and fly all these cool planes and do all this stuff because of the baseball thing. That I use it as a way, just like you do. You have a great platform, and you're honest, right? When people come at you, you come at them. You defend your territory. You know what I mean? And you have a pride in what you did because you're self-made. You're nobody's kid. You didn't back into this, you know what I mean? Yeah. You earned it, and every strikeout that you have and every vote that you've gotten for All-Stars or, the Cy Young Awards or anything like that, any vote you get is an earned vote from something you did when you were 17 or 18 years old. That's the compound interest, and you're starting to see the payoff on that, in the last maybe 2 or 3 years, I think, really. And it's been fun to watch your career as well, because I remember when you were just an article in ESPN, the magazine. You know what I mean? You were just that kid from UCLA. that threw bullpens with tunnels and stuff, and everyone's like, what's all this shit about? And that's like, oh, that's really what baseball is now, you know? So in a way, you speaking your mind, and taking hits, you know, for certain aspects of your preparation, and being willing to fail in front of everybody and learn as a result, and then get better and prove it, has been an awesome thing to watch. So, you know, as someone that's known you for a long time, even if we don't talk all the time, but I do really enjoy your game as a pitcher, and seeing your development's been pretty fun. So,
Yeah,
you know,
I appreciate that. Thank you. Last one I got for you. I saw a video with you and Jay Leno, and in the garage. What was that experience like? Because for a car guy like me, I sit there and I watch, and Jay Leno's in a completely different stratosphere from me. You know, I still feel that way. So what was that experience getting to hang out with him like?
he's hilarious. Like the stuff that he said off camera was almost better than any of the stuff he said on camera. But we did a thing that they cut, right? And they never showed it, but we did a deal where we went to the place where I played Little League, because it was right down the street from where my little garage was. And I was like, hey, Jay, why aren't we at your garage? He goes, I'm in my garage all the time. Like, I want to see your garage. You've got a garage. And I'm like, all right, I got like 4 cars in here. But he was like asking me questions that were so like cutting in a way about what was it like when you were a 12-year-old kid, and did you see yourself where you are now, and these types of things like that. And just getting like on the real level where we just talked, you know, and it wasn't about he's Jay Leno and I'm CJ or anything like that. It was more just like, hey, we're car guys, we're goal-oriented people. He's 100% self-made. But the funniest thing with Jay, and I'll say this because I think, I don't know, it blew my mind. I was like, Jay, do you ever do this or that? You like riding motorcycles. Have you ever wanted to like ride around Australia on a motorcycle? He goes, I don't ever take vacations. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, I get offered these gigs where like I'll go do jokes for like an hour for like a corporation in Atlanta, and I'll fly out and fly back the same day. And I hate turning stuff down because you never know. And I was kind of like, dude, Jay, you freaking made it, man. You're okay. Like, take a couple of weeks off and hop on a Gixxer and like ride around. Like you don't need any of this, you know. But his work ethic is so gnarly that it's. I was like, wow, okay, so he's really just a normal dude, and on that level, he wants the next thing to be going, and he wants to be productive, and that. I don't know, maybe it's an addictive personality or whatever, but I was like, okay, cool. This is a guy that I want to be like when I'm 60 years old. You know, I want to still be going and still be churning through. I don't want to be that guy that like, you see this all the time, that baseball player that like retires and then you look at them and they look like mashed potatoes like when they're 45. I'm like, that's not going to be me. You know what I mean? I want to be producing and stuff like that. But, you know, I tried, this is actually a real story. So I built a house in LA, and it was up the street from where Jay Leno lives. As an investment, and Jay Leno came to visit, and he drove his Fiat 500e, and I was like, "Are you kidding? Like you have a freaking like a orange pink Fiat 500e?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm just driving around, whatever." And I offered to trade him. I was like, "Dude, I'll trade you this house for some of your cars," you know. And he was like, "I don't ever sell anything. I never sell cars." And I was like, "Come on, Jay, I want your black F1. I'll trade you straight up for your black F1 for the house," you know. And I was like, I thought I could like car salesman, like voodoo him, you know, into doing it. No chance, 0 chance. He was not going to give that thing up. But that's the only car.
That car specifically is such a legendary car, you know.
Yeah.
I can see why he wouldn't want to give it up.
Oh, of course. Well, he doesn't have to give anything up. That's what makes it hard. Is he's at that point where he can, you know, he just adds people. But he gave me, so car guy to car guy. Now you and me, I'll give you the advice that he gave me. He said, hire a couple people that are your dad's age. You know, if you start getting a car collection, and have them do all the work on all your cars, because you'll pay them less than you'll pay the dealerships to fix your stuff. Mm-hmm. He's like, a couple like retired master mechanics, you pay them like 40 grand a year each, like depending on how many cars you have, maybe just one guy. You just give him like a retirement job where he just shows up at your garage and just works on your cars. Then the real question is, okay, if you have to pay this guy 4 or 5 grand a month max, whatever that is, then like, he's going to enjoy the job, number one. Number two, you're going to enjoy it because you'll always have something ready to go. But number three, like, where does that really amortize out? And then, like, does that come off as kind of a dick thing to, like, have some cranky pants dude in overalls, like, working on your cars all the time? So I guess it depends on the kind of cars. But I could see someone like Howie Kendrick or whatever that likes the old muscle cars. I could see him having a guy like
Yeah.
that one. So, I mean,
Yeah.
if you like modern cars, it doesn't really work necessarily because you need all the scan tools and stuff. But, that was actually pretty good advice. I was like, well, Jay, I'm just going to do this dealership thing. I'll just drop at my own dealership, to work.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. All right, man. I don't want to take up all your day. I know you're busy. I'm busy. I got to go work out. I'm still trying to throw for a living, so got to go maintain that.
Keep it strong, bro.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining me. It's been great catching up, and good luck with all the racing. And hopefully one day I see you at Lamaze. That'd be awesome.
I'll be there. I'll throw a little. If you make a little Bauer outage stickers, I'll throw one on the car.
Let's go. I love it. I'm gonna hold you to that.
I'm in. Okay. Thanks, Trevor. Good talking to you, man.
All right. Yeah. See you later.
See you.